Get ready for the Work Better podcast. I'm Toree McQueen, here to share stories on what's working and what's not in business and in life from humans all over the world. I believe everyone's version of success looks different, but in the end, we should all love our life's work, and in doing so, live a life of complete fulfillment. And if you don't love your work, I'm hoping you'll tune in and uncover some inspiration here to work better. Hey, my friends, welcome back to the Work Better podcast. I'm thrilled to introduce you to a dynamic and inspiring guest. She is a qualified lawyer who made a bold move from the corporate world to embrace her passion as a full-time entrepreneur and yoga instructor in Belgium. In this episode, she shares her incredible journey from getting certified in yoga to the profound impact mindfulness has had on her life. She now dedicates herself to helping corporate clients manage stress with unique techniques. We'll explore how to recognize stress symptoms, incorporate mindfulness into our daily routines, and master practical breathing exercise. Plus, she will reveal her transformative experience with Vipassana meditation and the secrets to maintaining mental and physical well-being through consistency. Get ready, guys, for an exciting and enlightening conversation with the amazing Irena. Hi, Irina. So happy to have you here.
Hi, Toree.
How are you doing?
I'm very much excited for this podcast. As I told you, it's quite late here in Brussels, but I don't mind. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Yes, we are across the oceans for sure, and countries, because I am on the Pacific Northwest, and you're far over there in, did you say Brussels?
Yeah, Brussels, Belgium. This is where I reside.
Belgium. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time and being here. I am just so excited to talk to you about your personal journey and how you got to where you are here. As an entrepreneur, everybody starts somewhere. So I kind of like to hear that side and what you do currently for people.
Thank you. I was born in Russia, and then I moved countries for my corporate job. So I'm a qualified lawyer, and I hold a couple of degrees in international law and energy policy and diplomacy.
Wow.
And so the life brought me here in Brussels, and I was doing this job up until last year. So now it's a bit more than 1 year that I'm a full-time entrepreneur. And it started like about 5 years ago. I got certified with my first yoga teacher training certificate. So as soon as I moved to Brussels, it was quite stressful times for me. And I was looking into some sort of a stress management techniques. And intuitively, I joined the yoga class and I loved it. And then I started going more often. And soon, I found myself on the yoga mat practically several times a week. And so 5 years ago, I received my first certification. And this is when I started teaching immediately in a yoga studio. And so approximately, I would say it was during the pandemic that I took an angle of the corporate well-being and how to adapt these yogic techniques of movement, mindfulness, meditation, breathing, to take them and to adapt them to the corporate world. Because I saw that during the pandemic, not much support was offered to people who suddenly were left all alone with all this technology, feeling lonely and disconnected. And I had this idea, started researching, studying. I did a course with Stanford University. And this is where I decided to move my services more into this direction. And also I offer yoga retreats, but practically the majority of my clients are those with demanding lifestyles, so people with corporate jobs. So in a nutshell, this is my journey of entrepreneurship so far.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's so funny how you just kind of smoothly go over how you, no big deal, were a lawyer, attorney, right? And then corporate world. And then you got into yoga, you loved yoga. It became part of your daily practice and then decided you wanted to teach yoga. And then now you found a niche and a need for the corporate world. Like that it sounds like, oh, all this happened, but I feel like it wasn't as smooth internally, right? Like there's something in there. Like what made you decide to go from, an attorney, right, in a position like that to realizing that wasn't the right fit for you and shifting? Or was it gradual, or was it like a rip of the Band-Aid, or how was that? If you can dig in there, like, I know that so many people listening to this can relate, especially in such a, I wouldn't say a prestigious role as an attorney. Like, what does that look like?
I was working
What
in
did
a EU association, so I was doing more of kind of managerial work. So first I started with legal drafts of the EU legislation, which was the draft legislation to be submitted to the commission, and afterwards going through the comitology process. And so as I was going more into yoga, I was thinking more of shift in my career path. And I thought that I would smoothly and gradually reduce my working hours. So first I would be working like 4 days a week, then 3 days a week, and then I would leave, so that it is step by step. But then, the universe decided otherwise. And I was just tired. So this is from one day to another. I was left with what I actually, I was thinking of doing myself. And so one day I became a full-time entrepreneur.
so that is like, it's so funny how that works, right? It's almost like if
Be
your heart
careful what
wasn't
you wish
in it.
for.
Well, that's just it. Well, but sometimes in hindsight, that's what we need, if you they talk about like manifestation and all of that, and sometimes it looks different in different ways, but if your heart really isn't in it, I feel like God, the universe, however you want to relate it to, like, it knows, like, you already know, like, you're over it. So sometimes it just like pushes you out the door before you're ready. And sometimes that can be a blessing. So that's so fun. So you started yoga and then you loved it and got kicked, like, I don't wanna say kicked out, but, like, it just wasn't your calling to do that and you're ready shifting. So, doing yoga in the corporate space, what does that look like for you branching into that? Did you just go to peers or clients that you already knew, or how did you break into that space? Because it is very different, than being in a yoga studio all the time.
Mhm. It's mostly because of the word of mouth. So because I knew people who are working here and there, and also because of the social media. So I try to be very consistent with what I post, so that people see how important it is and learn that indeed it is the case that it exists, this adapted yoga for the corporate world. And it doesn't necessarily need to be just yoga on a chair or near the chair. So it depends what is it that the client wants. So, for example, with some clients, we work just seated near their desks or standing near their chairs. So I can show them the movement exercises that they can do throughout the working day without necessarily wearing fancy yoga pants. But then some clients, they prefer actually to do yoga on yoga mats. And this is where we do a class in a meeting room or somewhere on the outside of the office building, if the weather permits. Again, it depends on what the needs of the clients are. But again, what unites all of these movements, regardless of how they are performed, in which form, what is unique and important is that all of these exercises, they are targeting specific area of complaints for people who are spending a lot of time at their laptops and seated.
Oh, okay.
So that's
Just
why,
uncomfortable, like, they find that, like, being at the computer desk all day is not good for their, bodies or mental? Would you say physical or
both.
mental and
Exactly. And
emotional? Everything?
exactly. And this is exactly why I think it is so important to offer not just movement, but also mindfulness and meditation and breathing exercises, so that people get this little piece of advice and then they incorporate it during their busy working schedule. So, for example, I can come to the client, I can show them the variety, like a buffet of all different options that they can do, depending on the circumstances that they are in. And for example, imagine you are just about to deliver a difficult presentation. You are nervous. Of course, yoga helps, but you will not be like standing up and doing some stretches, it will not be
Right.
appropriate.
Right, which
So,
is what my mind goes to, right?
so instead of that, what you could do is like a little breathing exercise or mindfulness exercise. For example, one of my favorites is to come back to your senses and to pay attention to what is it that you hear, see, touch, taste, and so on. And with the variety of all different options, you have the full set of things that you can do to help you manage stress because you're the one who is dealing with this demanding lifestyle and the corporate job. And again, it doesn't have to be necessarily people that are working as employees in the company. We also work with people who are startups or just small business owners. So again, what unites them is a lot of time seated, a lot of laptop work. And me myself, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a yoga teacher, but I spend a lot of time on my laptop because it does require certain things to still be done seated.
Right.
I'm not
Right.
in the lotus
Yeah.
position. Although sometimes, why not?
Yes. Well, and I think it's not just people in the corporate space either. I think it's just anybody who is in a highly productive or highly like attentive or highly stressful position,
Mhm.
or if they just take stress differently, sometimes they just need a few tools to help them process that and feel that and get it through so that they can still be themselves and carry on the tasks that they need to do, right? So it doesn't
Mhm.
pour into overwhelm and guilt and shame and all the other things that I feel like may come from that. But it's so awesome that you kind of picked this hole and saw it as something that people needed. Now, because I think a lot of times I feel like when people are busy and stressed, like the first thing that goes is people's health
Yeah.
and their mindsets, right? Sometimes it takes convincing for people to realize that that is what they need. So, what are some things that you think, like, if someone's working at home or someone's in a corporate environment and like stress? And I know you kind of started this when people were dealing with COVID and being at home and all of that stress. But if someone listening to this is, you know, in the corporate space or an entrepreneur themselves or a business owner, what are some of the signs that they can look for them to even know if this is something that would actually help them? Because I think a lot of people don't understand the benefits or even recognize that there is anything that they can do.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get it because, people tend to think about themselves as the less important person. So, there are some people that tend to disregard all of the symptoms and signs from their bodies and from their behavior and explain
Yes.
it by virtue of something external, whereas it is already at the stage where the external was projected internally, and so this is
Oh,
already the sign that you have to do something with it. And actually, I do get this question quite often from my clients. They ask, how do I understand that I'm in a stressful situation? How do I catch it? Because, okay, I give you different options of what you can do when you're in the stressful
yeah.
situation. But the primary question is how to distinguish that you are stressed, that currently something
Yes.
is
And
happening.
not, yeah,
Exactly.
I could see how that would be tough to identify and be honest with yourself. Like, am I stressed or I'm not stressed? Like, I'm not
Mm,
stressed. Like, but your body
yeah.
internally or externally may feel it. So, yeah, I'd be curious what that answer is.
Yeah, and so I like to distinguish between the, let's say, long-term symptoms and symptoms that are applicable right now on the spot. So, of course, if you're, if you have bad sleep, if you have aches and pains in your neck and your shoulders, in this area in particular, headaches and so on, then okay, this is kind of more of a long-term symptom that something is going on, something is not right. But when how to catch these moments then you when you realize that you are right now in this stressful situation and you can actually turn it around and do something about it. Quite often the symptoms would be that you would have not a stable breathing, but you would breathe more shallowly and more with the upper part of your chest. Or, for example, you would jump into an easy fix, like you would go for another cup of coffee, or you would go for another piece of cake or something. I have nothing against chocolates or
Distraction? Is
cakes or
that a
something.
distraction?
Yes, it's more kind of a way of denying it. Or some people, they would be like, for instance, quite often they would ask me, like, I'm so sleepy throughout the day. I have so many things, but I'm so sleepy, I don't know what to do. And this is again the response of your nervous system, because you're in the stressful situation, you have a deadline approach, and then your body decides that it would rather take a nap. You know,
Yeah.
these are the things that are the most popular. So catching the easiest response, or sleepiness, or snapping at your spouse or children or to your friends or something, and then you could realize that, by virtue of how you breathe in, for example, or all of the things that I mentioned, that something is happening. And it's better to have some sort of a cheat sheet. So it's better for you to write down, afterwards, when you realize that I'm in a stressful situation, you write down, okay, how is it that I felt? And just keep it somewhere handy, maybe in your phone, in your notes app. And then you can have another list of, let's say, a solution list. What is it that you can do? So there you go. You have it already here in your hands. And the only thing that is left to do is actually to do it.
Oh my
So,
gosh,
yeah.
the magic, right? The magic thing is actually the doing
Yeah.
of what you most likely already know. But that's so helpful. So, do you find that a lot of clients use that tool where they have to just kind of self-diagnose and self-recognize their patterns, and then you kind of give them the solutions when they see those patterns?
Some people do it, some people still don't. It's the same as with the gym, Everybody can go to the gym and do the exercise by themselves, or they can hire a personal trainer. So the same story here. If you one of these people who are more organized and diligent and aware of yourself, of course, once you have these tools, you can manage through this on your own. But if you think that you prefer better to be helped and guided, then it's better to be in the company of a professional who would support you on this journey.
And I love that because I do think everybody's a little bit different. Now, I'm sure that people go through different seasons too, where they need more support in certain seasons and then less in others. And I haven't learned yet aside from yoga. I've been to yoga and I love it. I actually love like hot yoga, like in a really hot room. Like I'm one of those people. But
Yeah,
and
which
I
I started actually. That my first class was the hot yoga class.
Is it? Oh gosh, it's so nice. I feel like it relaxes me so much more. But, would you say that majority of the people who get success with you is through you kind of holding their hand and supporting them through that? And what does that look like?
I see that people who are consistent clients, so people who go to my classes regularly, I can see how they change over the time. And for me, this is
Oh.
the identification of success. The same goes for the retreat. So, for example, if I bring people on a retreat, which lasts approximately for 1 week, it is so much better for me to work with the same group of people and to guide them on this journey step by step, from small things to things that build up on the small things during this week or so. And you can see people that are coming to the retreat and that are leaving the retreat, they're different people. They look different, they behave different, even the facial expression is different. So I would say that the key is about consistency and doing things regularly. Of course, it's better to do something than nothing. This is why we also offer one-off solutions like a one-off workshop. But the idea is that after this one-off workshop, where you will be shown different tools, you take them with you and then you continue implementing them.
Wow. Okay. So I believe it when you say like the transformation, you can see it in them. So it's the people who show up consistently. And when you say consistently, is that daily for you? Because I know some people are like, oh, consistently once a month, consistently, I go to the retreats consistently, but like if someone goes to your class, is it daily? And do you recommend it daily? Or if someone goes to your retreat once a year, is that really enough, would you say? Or is it just a mindset shift for them that they have to get before they start building those daily habits? Like
Yeah.
what would you say is the best practice?
I think it's important to do something for yourself every day. Of
Yeah.
course, it doesn't mean that every day you would be on a yoga mat for the whole hour, but it's better to do at least some stretches. It's better to do at least some meditation, at least some mindful activities, like, for example, mindful eating or mindfully taking a shower, realizing that you're actually in the shower, not thinking about your to do list.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, that's so
so
hard.
it is, isn't it?
Especially if that's like your
So
alone time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I understand. And this is what I wanted also to add. I do understand that we are all normal people. All of us have busy lives and lots of things to do, and kids to take from school, and groceries to make, and parties to attend, and vacations to plan, and so on. So life is happening. And this is why when you take a decision to come to a retreat or enroll in a regular well being activities, or even just regular only yoga. The idea is to make sure that your lifestyle allows for that. So you would make some changes in your lifestyle so that you know that, okay, these days a week, this is my me time. I go and take care of myself because I know that afterwards I will be a better human, better family member, better friend.
Yes. Hey there, friends. Are you in business and wanting to get more clients over the next 6 weeks? Well, I've got something just for you, the 5831 Method Session and Guide. It's all about simplifying your strategy to attract and close those dream clients. No more guesswork. Think of this as a little one-on-one session with me to figure out the exact strategies to gain those next clients to close. When you jump on board, you'll snag a downloadable guide and step-by-step video session with yours truly, so we can tailor this method to fit your unique business and goals. And imagine this, in just under an hour session, you'll have a custom roadmap ready to roll out over the next 6 weeks. So what are you waiting for? No matter what business you're in, head on over to toreemcqueen.com/method. That's toreemcqueen.com/method, or find the link in the show notes to get more clients today. I can relate to that so much. I mean, I think the mindfulness is so huge, and I think it goes hand in hand with yoga, but I'd love for you to explain a little bit about like is is the physical practice of being on the yoga mat the same as in the shower and like being mindfulness? Like is it the same impact on your clients, would you say?
I would say, again, it depends on the client. Some people prefer to limit their participation only to the movement activities. The trick about yoga and all of these movement activities, which are yoga based, at least in my program, is the fact that you are moving while you are mindful of your movement. So on an inhalation, you're doing one thing, on an exhalation, you're doing another thing. And I keep on cueing people who are attending, asking them to pay attention to a particular feeling in their body in that particular movement. Some people might feel it, some people not. This is why it's also interesting for us to exchange. I would ask them, what is it that you feel? And they would say, oh, I don't feel anything. And then I would offer another variation so that indeed it is connection to the body. So you're using the body as the anchor to come back to the present moment. So in the end, you could say that everything is mindfulness, regardless of whether it is movement or mindfully taking a shower. And with movement activity and yoga based movement, yoga as such, for me, it was exactly the change maker, let's say, in my life, because I was disconnected from my body. And the fact that I was moving mindfully during yoga, connecting the movement with the breath, and realizing where is what in my body, like this is what helped me to connect to my body. Because so often I see so many people are there that, come into a yoga class, for example, and I would tell them, bring your feet together, and nothing changes.
Oh my
And I have to explain what is it, what does it mean to have the feet together, because a lot of people, they don't have yet this connection to the body movement, this proprioception. So feet together, okay, it means that feet are touching. So yeah, and it's interesting to observe how
Oh,
with practice things are changing, and how then the more often the person comes back to a yoga class or to a session, the easier it is for me to cue, because I know already that they know what to do with their bodies when I cue it.
oh, yeah. Yeah. And I can only see, like, how transformation I just can understand, like, how transformation can happen if people are outside of themselves and then refocusing back to their own body. Like, I think that, I've gone through that a few times, and I think in my industry that I'm in, as far as, like, I'm in real estate, but also entrepreneurs that I'm surrounded with a ton of business owners, a ton of CEOs, um, and a lot of them are, I would say, like, have the symptoms that you express. Like, they're all, like, a little bit stressed out. You wanna say, like, work-life balance, they're, like, a little bit unbalanced all the time. They are learning to be okay with it, and also, like, being present is very, very difficult for anybody in a high-level position or has to make high-level decisions a lot of the time, and then a lot of these people are, at the end of the day, going home to their families and want to have a peaceful home. So, I guess my question for you is really, like, how would one be able to use the tools to be present with their family without thinking of work? Like, are you thinking, like, it takes going to a yoga practice, or are these things they can just do in their home?
It's all interconnected, because imagine that you are having a problem at work. Of course, you take this problem with you in your head, and probably your family members and your loved ones would see that something has happened, and you would share, and it
Right.
would also impact them. And it works the other way around too. If you had a fight with your husband or with your kid, and then you need to come back to work and work on a very important project that you have to deliver, of course you will feel distracted. So everything is interrelated, and that's why it's so interesting to observe how these tools, they work throughout your life. Work is an important part of our life, but it's not all of it. And that's why the tools that we teach in the corporate setting. So when I go to the clients and I tell them, okay, this is the breathing technique that you can use before your stressful presentation as you perceive it.
Right.
You can use the same breathing technique before you talk to your kids about how the day at school
Oh my
went.
gosh. Yes. I
So, yeah.
totally get that. And it does, especially, like, with a lot of parents working in the household now. I bet that a lot of people could use, like, that kind of skill set to be able to get more in tune with themselves, leave work at work and home at home. And man, does that sometimes feel hard to do. I know you mentioned, like, the sensory technique that you do, like the feeling of your senses, like, what do you see? What do you smell? What do you hear? What do you
Mhm.
feel? Those things. I know of that technique and I love that one. I use that on occasion too. Do you mind sharing, like, 2 other techniques that people who are working, how they can leave work at work and be present in both at each given moment, I should say? Leave one at the door and, like, move to the next, or
Mhm. I would think that an interesting one that I heard from my friend, actually, that you imagine that your work is some sort of a box, and you just close that box at a particular moment in during the day, and then you open the other box. And so the people, the situations, the environment is different, and you have to distinguish between the two, because in case there is a spillover, which I talked just about previously, doesn't bring much value to either side.
no,
Yeah.
no. So she recommends visualizing closing a box
Yes,
and visualizing
the
open a
actual
box? Like, just
boxing.
that simple, like, in 30 seconds?
Depends how big the box is, how many, locks are there. So yeah,
And what's trying to come out of it, right?
yeah, exactly.
Would you be willing to share another practice that someone can do if they're like in their office struggling to figure out a way to let it go and move
Mm-mm-mm.
on to the next? Get back in their body and like move on to be
Yeah.
present elsewhere?
Yeah, I would say my favorite one is a breathing activity, breathing exercise, because it doesn't take long and your breath is always with you. This is the first
Mm.
thing that you do on this lifetime. This is the last thing that you do in this lifetime. So there are a couple of options. So, for example, you can imagine that you are breathing along the perimeter of the square, and then you inhale on a count on four, then you hold the breath on a count of four, exhale on a count of four, and hold the breath on an exhalation on a count of four, and you go along the perimeter of a square. That's one of the things because your mind is busy with keeping these numbers
Square.
even, so you get distracted from what is it that was a stressor. And another thing, it is based on the fact that you can activate your parasympathetic nervous system if you exhale longer than you inhale, because your body receives a signal. Okay, I can relax, I can exhale for longer. And this is why, for example, this is where, for example, you could inhale on a count of three, exhale on a count of six. It depends on
Oh,
what will be comfortable. And then you continue with longer exhalations than inhalations. This way you would come down.
wow. Okay. And how long do you think someone should sit doing that or focus on that?
I would say no longer than 5 minutes. Even 5 minutes is enough. Even a couple of minutes is enough. It's like, this is fascinating. These things are so accessible, they are free. And the only thing that you need to do is just to give yourself a little bit of a container of the space and the time to do it. But because people are so busy and this container or the box notion, it's so difficult to find because we are running all over the place. There are so many things to go through the to-do list. That's why it's important that, you have your dedicated session or time when, this is the time and the space container for myself. I take care of myself. And with breathing technique, even a couple of minutes will do. Just try it and
Yes.
you will see.
That's so helpful. That's so helpful. And it's things that people can do like right away, right? Right now at home. They can start that practice today and do and make it a habit and just
Mhm.
habit stack it, throughout the day when you're feeling that way and go back to like documenting what you feel and then what actually helped and try different things. You would think that like after doing that breathing exercise, your mind would go back to it. But when I think about this, I also think about like my 4-year-old, right? When he gets upset. And sometimes it's just, I don't even know what to say to him because when he commits sometimes to being upset, he doesn't know how to calm himself down. So I'm often like, would you like a hug? Would you like to talk about it? Would you like to be alone? Like I'm like giving him options, right?
Oh,
And
this is so
sometimes
beautiful.
when
He
I
has his toolkit already, right?
oh, I guess. I mean, it's just what I do because it's almost my reaction of like, okay, don't panic to his panic.
Mhm.
What let me ask him, like, what does he need? Like, what does he need? And so sometimes it is just a hug. And sometimes I'm like, okay, do you want to take 3 deep breaths? And I wouldn't think that it would help, but it helps him. Like he just takes 3 deep breaths and he wants help doing it sometimes. And we do that and then he's fine. And he doesn't think about it anymore. He moves on to something else. But I would like it amazes me sometimes how that actually physically and mentally releases that.
And this is so beautiful that you do it already, and you teach him already this from such a young age. It's great. Like, I'm
Well, I
impressed.
try. It's more like it's interesting because I don't know what it will do later. Like you never know as a parent, and all my kids are different, but you never know like what you do, how that will impact later. As much as studies show and things show, everything changes all the time. So I can only do what I think is best. And we've done that with some of our kids don't necessarily need it that way, but some do. And it has helped. So hopefully, if anybody's listening, if you wanna try it on them, it can. But personally, like with the work stuff, like working and being an adult and how to recognize when you're out of your body, I think is a huge underrated. I don't know if that's a skill. Would you call it a skill?
I
Being
think
able to
so.
recognize, or is it just like knowing thyself?
I think it is a skill. But the thing is that you can learn it.
Like
Y- y-
self-awareness?
Yeah, yeah, you can learn it. Like if you have the willingness and the aim to actually change something in the way that you react to stressful situations, even if you're to the extent that you are sick and tired like of how your behavior is when you are stressed, then you have the motivation and you go for it.
Yes. Can you explain to me, can you explain to me one of your greatest like transformations that you've seen of somebody?
Well, obviously these are transformations that are connected with switching the career path. So I would
Switching
say
career.
yes,
Okay.
yes. A lot of people are unhappy with what is it that they do at their current jobs. And a lot of my clients, people who come to retreats and to my yoga sessions, they are either thinking about it or they're on the verge of changing or they are just have changed. And it's interesting to see this this common thing. And I think, of course, on the one hand, it is scary, it is unstable, but on the other hand, it is so beautiful to see these people around that are courageous enough to have this change because life is too short to do the wrong job.
Right. And I think that's where they would need it the most, right? Is they're feeling like what they're doing is not aligned with where where they're at probably. And so they need to recenter with your body, kind of how you were, right? They need to recenter with their body to get in tune as to what they actually need or want or what it is they're missing or looking for. And I could definitely see how not only is it a stressful time for people to figure that out because they're battling all kinds of internal messages, I think, and unsureties and like fear and what people think and whatever it is they're going through. But I do think that it is something that people face more and more often as the years go than previous, like, decades, right? Like,
Yeah,
people would
yeah.
stay in one spot and stay there for 20, 30, 40 years doing the one thing. And now with social media and all the opportunity and abundance, I think it throws in a whole lot of variables in the mix when it comes to stress and comparison and knowing what is actually right for you. I think that more and more as AI comes out and more technology comes out, people are going to have to be more in tune with themselves to be able to find that peace and happiness.
Mhm. Yeah, of course. And I see also the reason for such a drastic change recently. I think it's also because of the pandemic and that people were stuck at home and they had the time to think what is it that they want. They didn't have that many distractions and social events to spend their time on. So they spend their time on thinking and pondering about some things.
Yeah.
So this is where I think it's logical but interesting still to observe that such a change has happened.
Yes. Oh, so good. So good. And would you say that is yoga your meditation or do you do separate practices? Like you do your yoga on the mat and then you do a separate meditation?
Yeah, I do both. I do consider that movement is also meditation, and there are so many different types of meditation. Like you can meditate while you're walking, you can meditate while you are baking, and so on. So, but I do like the seated meditation. And recently, I have done a Vipassana course. So this is a 10-day course where you are not talking to anybody, but you can only ask questions from your teacher if they're burning questions. Of course, you like this question, while you're formulating your question, you already get the answer that it will not be answered because it's like a rhetorical question or something. But generally, you are not allowed to talk, not allowed to communicate, look at each other, read or write. And it's a challenging and interesting time. But I really appreciated this course, and it helped me a lot to come down, to remind myself on what is it that is important. And yeah, so since then I meditate every day, at least a little bit, even if it is just a few minutes, that's enough.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
as I
Check
said
in with
before,
yourself.
yeah, it's better to do at least something than nothing at
Mhm.
all. Because often there is this excuse, what's the point? I will not do it for a couple of minutes. It will not make a change. I will wait until I have enough time, like a proper 1 hour.
Mhm.
No, whenever you have this thought in your head, it is just another excuse that prevents you from practicing. It's better to do just a little practice than nothing at all with the excuse that you will do something bigger later because chances
Yeah.
are that you won't.
Yes, I love that, and I agree with you. Take it in baby steps, but just the habit stacking, habit 1 minute at a time, then 2 minutes, and it'll be easier, like running, you don't just wake up and run a marathon, you
Yeah.
do a little bit every day, and it all
Yeah.
adds up. Okay, so that last certification you said, what was that one again? What is that for?
It was not a certification, it was a course. It's called Vipassana meditation, silent meditation, and there is a special technique to do it. They explain it to you step by step throughout this 10-day course. So I have done one sit-in, as they call it, in August. And then afterwards, I went on volunteering in another center for this meditation because I was also curious about people who work there.
Uh-huh.
And, it's interesting to connect with like-minded people and
Oh,
see how
absolutely. It's a
they
game
are
changer.
coming from all
Mhm.
over the world. They all have different
Mhm.
backgrounds, but the thing that unites them is that they all do this meditation.
It's awesome. It's awesome that we have that capability to connect with people across the globe. Oh, okay. And that one's the one where you can't ask you can only ask questions or you can't talk at all. They ask all the questions.
You can ask questions to your teacher. So there is a teacher who is sitting there in front of the big room with all the people who are meditating. In the place where I was meditating, there were 130 of us. So it's quite a big party, I would say, right? And then they play the audios where the technique is being explained every day. And then the teacher who is running the course, he is available for any questions. Like, for example, if you notice that some things are not working during this technique, or you have some questions about the philosophy behind the technique, you can ask him questions.
But
I
you
was
sit in
asking questions.
silence.
Pardon?
But you sit
Yeah,
in
yeah,
silence.
yeah, yeah. You sit inside.
Wow. That's so amazing. Ugh. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I think a lot of people sitting at home right now that listen to this or driving in their car or doing that could really, really use these techniques and start that journey. Because I know a lot of people are either pivoting or they're growing a family or they just don't understand why they're stressed or whether it be too plugged into social media or even addicted to social media. They
Mhm.
take up all their time scrolling instead of spending it with themselves. And I think it's just enlightening to know like there's so many other opportunities out there that you could do in like just minutes a day.
Exactly. And I think this is really important. And this is like the main message that I'm trying to convey to people who
Mhm.
are on the fence. Like, you don't have to do so many good things at the same time half of your day. Like, you have your morning routine, which takes like
Yeah.
half of your day, right? It's already enough to start with small things and do them consistently and notice what is it that triggers you, how you can react, and how you can change your reaction. And it will make a big difference.
Well, thank you so much. How can people find you? And if they want to work with you, where do they reach you and what are you up to?
Thank you. The easiest ways to go to my website is yogashape.online, or you can also DM me on Instagram. It is yoga.shape. So I would be very happy to connect with your listeners.
Awesome.
And
Yeah, and we'll connect that. We'll put that in the show notes too.
thank
So
you.
that way people can easily reach out to you. But This was so good. And I really, really appreciate you sharing. And some of those techniques I know people can start using today if they wanted. So I really, really appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Tori. It has been a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, my friends, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Work Better podcast. I hope you've wrapped up your golden nugget and take it with you on your journey to finish out the week. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, leave a review, or reach out to me personally if you have any special requests for guests or questions you'd like me to share on the show. In the meantime, I'll be over here rooting for you. Until next time.